So a bit of context first. I work at Mannheim University Library, and we are one of the partners in BERT NFDI project. It's a project for building infrastructure in Germany for data in business economics and related disciplines. And we have a lot of different data sets with company data, both structured and unstructured. And for every data set, in principle, we want to build a knowledge graph, a small knowledge graph, sometimes a big knowledge graph. And then we would like to build a kind of main metadata knowledge graph for all those small knowledge graphs. And one of our solutions is Wikibase, of course. And the problem here is that some of our researchers worked in disciplines in which it's not so common to use very sophisticated tools like Sparkle endpoint or even API. And the problem with Wikibase, when you put data there, is that the user cannot easily export data. So some of our users, they really want to get CSV format for company data, and there is no such option. So of course, to develop such an extension is a huge work, and we tried to find partners for that, and we have found great partner, Jeroen and his company, and he agreed to develop that. And Jeroen, if you want to continue, you can continue showing that extension maybe in action.
Great. So we have a demo wiki that's live. You can also head over to the URL here. So the extension is still a work in progress. So like with our previous extensions, this is an open source thing. So you will be able to download this and install it on your own Wikibase. And that's why we have this public demo wiki as part of the documentation. So you can try it out and get an idea of what the extension does before you install it. So of course, a big thank you here to Uni Mannheim for funding development of this extension and making it an open source thing. So to show off some integration with our hosting platform, I've actually disabled the extension at the moment on the demo wiki, and I'll show you how easy it is to enable it now. I just go over here and click enable export page and save the config. And now the new extension is enabled. You can also see here that we can configure the extension, and that's something that I will show after showing the actual export UI. So I do want to temper expectations a little bit here, in that this export extension is really geared towards the use case that Renaud has. So it will not solve all your export needs. So it's perhaps a step in the direction of solving some of them. Here, the extension adds this special Wikibase export page, which is the exporting UI. And it has several elements here, which we can have a look at. First, you choose the items that you wish to export. So we have a search here. And this demo wiki just has 2 items here now. So we can say which ones you want to export.
The 2 major companies in the world.
Yes, of course. And then you choose the time range. So what this extension does, it gives you a CSV file in which the values are grouped by year. So the CSV is a lot more simple than what you typically get with the Wikibase export. So you don't have the whole complicated data structure with statements and main snacks and qualifiers and all these different data types stuff going on. You just have a CSV with string values in it. And So the extension is doing some simplification / projection to do this, just get the CSV string values. And it's also doing some filtering and some grouping. And this time range here means you will get one value per year. So for instance, if we do this, now there will be values for 2019 and for 2020 in there. Then you also have the option to choose which values that you include. So this is about Wikibase properties. And yeah, you can just select which ones you want to have included, or you can just choose to have all of them included. And what all here means is actually something that's coming from the configuration. So you can configure which things that are selected by default and which are the options here. The same goes for the default start year and end year, and for the things that are automatically selected when you load the form for the subjects. And once you did all of that, then you can, well, I should probably include something here. Click download, and let's see if I can get this on the screen now, because it's actually downloaded the file now. Can you see LibreOffice?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So, so this is the data that got downloaded. So it's a view on the CSV. You can see here we have both Q1 and Q2, Q8, the two companies we selected. And then we also selected two properties, which is P8 and P7. And for each of those, we have both years represented in the form of a column. And then for the columns for which there is data, you get the value from the Wikibase item. So for instance, here, so P8 here is operating revenue. We have 1,337 for professional wiki, and we can go look at the actual Wikibase item to see where that's coming from. So in here we have this value for the operating revenue, and here we have a qualifier saying this is point in time in 2019, which is why in the export is showing it for 2019. And we support two different things there. You can use point in time qualifiers, and you can use start and end time qualifiers. And so if you use start time in 2000 and end time in 2002, then it will be included in both those years and in everything in between. So 2000, 2001, and 2002. And in this case, it's still 2022, so this will be in 23 years. And let's have a look at the configuration next. So is there any questions so far? Okay, Tom is asking, how do you bootstrap the special properties? That's why the configuration is next. So we, and this panel that I showed here before, how to enable the extension, that's not part of the extension itself. It's just an integration we have on our hosting. But then this configuration page is part of the extension itself. So the MetaWiki Wikibase export page is a special page that can only be edited by privileged users, so by administrators on the wiki. And on here, this is very similar to what we did with automated values, where you can configure the extension with some JSON. So here you can specify which are the properties for the start time, for the end time, and for the point in time. And you can also specify here the properties that are shown in the form. Where is it now? So yeah, in here you have P8 and P7 showing, and that's coming from the config here. One improvement we made about or over the approach we took in with the automated values extension is that this page is self-documenting. So if you scroll down here, you have a documentation for all the different variables, and you have an example as well. And then Another thing that you have here is links to configuration for messages. So let's, for instance, look at this one. Here you have choose subjects. This is a page you can edit, and that will then change. Where did it go? So you can see here, choose subjects. And in case of Renaud's wiki, it will be about companies. So that's something that can then be changed to say, choose companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were some feedback in the chat, especially about the configuration, which seems like an interesting approach, and that the documentation is also right below. That seems particularly nice. So one question I have is, you can configure like one kind of data that is to be exported right now. So this is now companies, right? And would it be possible to then have some, I don't know, pop-up menu that I expand this JSON into a list of exactly the same structure and say, okay, now I'm picking not companies, but I don't know what else, goats or something, and could get a similar export?
Yes, that's something that we thought about, and that makes a lot of sense, but it's not implemented because it wasn't part of the use case here. But we developed the extension following all kinds of best practices and so on. So it is not impossible to build on top of this and enhance the extension by adding new functionality there that allows for different types of entities that you want to export, and each with their own dedicated UI.
And could you also explain what is the difference between CSV wide and long? Is that already implemented, or what is the idea behind it?
Okay, this is was part of the original requirements, but we talked about it with Renaud a bit, and at the moment we just have wide implemented. So this UI is a bit out of date at the moment and will be dropped very likely. But again, the way that we designed things allows for other formats to be added in the future without rewriting the entire extension. So you might want some JSON or some XML format as well at some point. But that's simply not required for the use case at hand.
Okay, nice. And one more question I have, if that's okay. So how are you getting all the items for export? Is this a Sparkle query that you're sending off and then interpreting the results?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we tried very hard to make the extension work without the Sparkle. So that makes it a lot easier to install it on your own Wikibase. And just reduces the overall complexity quite a bit, and makes it also more likely that the extension keeps on functioning properly in the future.
Okay, so it's not using Sparkle. You're using the local database for that, like MySQL or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I see.
Well, if I may, that leads me to another question. How's this going to work if you have millions of entries? Have you tried that?
We have not tried that, but this extension is not suitable, at least in its current form, for exporting millions of items. So the way Wikibase works, that's just not something we can make happen with such a web UI. So again, going back to the good design principles and so on, it would be possible to create a command line script on top of the extension's code base that's there's a longer running export, and then you could provide dumps to your users, similar to what Wikidata is doing. So at the moment, it's not possible to even specify, I want like all the items in the wiki. You need to select the ones that you're interested in over here.
And is that this this restriction, it comes from that the server that your Wikibase would run on is cutting off a running task after, I don't know, 10 minutes, because yeah, that would block web access from other users, right? So it's not, so that's like the bottleneck here. Is that true? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, I see.
By and large, yeah.
Okay.
And there are ways around it. Like I mentioned, you can have the longer running script, and we could also have some kind of background processes that run and then update the interface at a later point, kind of like a Google Takeout. But that was not part of the requirements for this project. And
yeah, there are not so many companies in Germany after all. So
that also reminds me of a nice to have that we identified early on in the project, which also is not implemented, is that, so here we have this selection of the companies that you want to export, that you might, for instance, want to say, I want all the companies with more than 500 employees. And that's not something that is possible at the moment, but yeah, it's something that's similar to supporting different types of entities to export is something that I imagine a lot of people would find useful, and is like an idea for further development on this extension. Right now, we have this list of properties. So in the configuration that's over here with the P8 and P7, and that's the variables that you are able to select here. And all of these are getting grouped by year. And something we are working on at the moment as a bonus feature for the project is having the ability to specify properties that are not grouped. So this configuration will go away, and it will be replaced by two different configurations. So we would have normal properties, and then you would have some other ones. So you would. So for instance, if you're talking about companies, you might have a founder. And I think we actually have an example of that here. Go away. Overlay. So here we have a company, and we have operating revenue and listed on stock exchanges that are qualified in time. But then we have founded by, which lists some people. And these values, they don't change over time because it happens only once. So it doesn't make sense to show one column with the same values for each year. So what we're doing is we're allowing you to specify the things that will be qualified by time, and then also to allow specifying the properties that are not qualified by time, where you will only get like one column. And this helps both the Renat use case, and it will make the extension more generally usable because you are not forced to group everything by time.
There were very relevant comments in the chat. Jaren, have you read?
Okay, so Jacqueline is writing about property labels. So that's about the headers here.
Exactly, which we discussed also.
Yeah, so that's nice to get an idea of the group, like what people prefer here. So it's possible that, so what's this? So P8 is operating revenue. So we could put P8 2020, which is nice and machine readable, but we could also put operating revenue there, right? Yeah, so what works better for your use case?
I think an export option might be, like a toggle might be the best solution here, because indeed most tools would choke on like a double header.
Yeah, Tom, we could like do extra columns, but that would kind of double the data, which is not ideal.
No, why not? Yeah, like Dragan said, in the extension user interface, have a tick box, machine readable labels or human readable labels.
Well, thank you so much. That was nice.
There will be some update from us and maybe Renat as well at the later point. We will do some announcement blog posts when the extension is like officially released, and also be creating a demo video like we did with previous extensions.